So the purpose of the meeting is to provide a detailed summary of the 2020 Draft Basin 14 Tactical Basin Plan. It'll be about 45 minutes. We'll start with a Basin 14 overview, the tactical basin planning process, what we've accomplished in the last 5 years, restoration and protection priorities, our strategies for this coming plan for clean water. We'll also share some information on how to become involved in watershed work, how to submit your comments, and Karen will submit polls throughout the presentation for online participants. So we'll also be providing an opportunity to ask questions specific to the plan and submit comments at the end, and we'll have about 30 minutes for that. Some basic ground rules, just please be sure your phone is muted. I haven't muted all attendees, so you'll have the ability to unmute yourself. If you are on the phone, you would have to press *6. I ask that everybody have a positive attitude and be respectful of other people's ideas or situations when they talk, and express any disagreements or concerns respectfully. I encourage clarifying questions during the presentation, but not necessarily questions on content, because we can do that later. So by phone, like I said, you can unmute by pressing *6 and ask your question, or online, please type your question in the chat. Marie will be watching for that. Please share your unique perspective and speak honestly. And be sure to listen and be patient when listening to others. So it looks like, we have enough. Well, I would say we don't have tons of people, so it'd be nice if everybody would just introduce themselves and say what their role is in basin planning. So why don't we start with Marie?
Caught me off guard there on me. Hi, everyone. I'm the basin planner for just south of Danielle's territory. I do the Ottauquechee River and down towards Vernon. So I'm Danielle's counterpart.
Thanks, Marie. Okay, Brian, say hello.
Hello.
Brian's our IT specialist. Karen?
Hi, I had to actually put the poll out there to be able to talk. I'm the basin planner from up north, where things are very interesting.
All right, so it looks like everybody's voting. Why don't we just put the answer to the first poll out there then? We've got 4 or 5 people. Anybody else throw it out there? Karen's poll. All right, close it off, Karen. All right. So it looks like most people are from Vermont. Somebody's from somewhere else. That's interesting to me. Okay.
The Russians.
The Russians. All right. And Elle, do you want to say hello?
Sure. I'm Elle O'Keefe. I get to work with some of the basin planners and wanted to learn more about this particular basin plan tonight.
Thanks. Grace?
Hi, I'm Grace from Central Vermont Regional Planning. I'm the one who voted somewhere else. I originally grew up outside of DC, but obviously live here now. So as someone who works at a RPC, we generally just provide recommendations and review the basin plans from the perspective of the towns that are in that specific region. So I'm just here to observe and note comments and stuff.
Thanks. Jess?
Hi, my name is Jess Richter. I'm a planner at the Two Rivers Ottauquechee RPC. And one of my focuses at TRORC is watershed planning as well. Our region makes up a pretty large portion of the Basin 14 watershed, with 11 of our towns within our region falling within this watershed. So also just kind of here to observe and take in comments tonight as well.
Thanks. Hey, Ron.
Hello, Ron Rhodes, Connecticut River Conservancy. mostly involved in restoration work that is listed in the basin plan, so dam removals, tree plantings, and whatnot.
Thanks, Ron. And hey, Russ, can you tell us a little about yourself as well?
Yeah, I'm with the Clean Water Advisory Committee, Central Vermont Regional Planning, former county forester in both Orange counties and Washington County. I'm somewhat familiar with the area we're talking about. I'm just here to listen a little bit and learn a little bit.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's do it. Let's move on to the basin plan. So I'm going to use the story map as a way to present the plan. And generally, I'm going to go over and just kind of read through the story map and share information with you. There are some interactive tools within the story map that you can access outside of the story map itself. So the reader will see buttons, these blue rectangular buttons throughout the text. The buttons link to corresponding sections in the 2020 Draft Basin 14 Tactical Basin Plan. So basic stuff, I think all of you know this, is what is a basin? It's an area of land drained by a river and its tributaries. The terms basin and watershed are used interchangeably in this story map. The Stevens, Wells, Waits, Ompompanoosuc, and Connecticut River direct tributary watersheds are also referred to as Basin 14. The basin includes the area of land that water flows over and through that drains to a water body. Basins can be large or small, and the watershed is generally referred to as the boundary of the basin. Even a small rivulet in your driveway has a drainage basin. So what's a tactical basin plan? Tactical basin plans are developed in accordance with the Vermont Surface Water Management Strategy and the Vermont Water Quality Standards to protect, maintain, enhance, and restore biological, chemical, and physical integrity of Vermont's water resources. The basin-specific water quality goals, objectives, and strategies and projects described in tactical basin plans aim to protect public health and safety and ensure public use and enjoyment of Vermont's waters and their ecological health. So simply put, a tactical basin plan is a strategic guidebook developed by the Agency of Natural Resource to protect the best and restore the rest of Vermont's surface waters. Basin planners collaborate with state, federal, and local partners and stakeholders to improve and protect water quality throughout the state. And this collaboration is crucial to the health of our water. So everybody participating tonight knows this. They've all been a part of this collaboration. And so while we work with the larger agencies in the development of the plan, when it comes to the implementation of the plan, we're working with, FPR and Fish and Forest Parks and Recreation, Fish and Wildlife, regional planning commissions, natural resource conservation districts, local watershed groups, and then folks from town boards and commissions. Basically, anybody who wants to do the work with us, we're open to it. So each basin plan has a 5-year cycle. This allows for planning for Vermont's 15 planning basins. The basin planning process includes 5 major steps. They are monitoring water quality, assessing and analyzing water quality data, identifying strategies and projects to protect and restore waters, seeking public comment and developing the plan, and then implementing and tracking plan priorities, which is ongoing throughout the planning cycle. So why should you care? Well, I think there are many reasons to care about basin plans. First and foremost, they provide 5-year updates on water quality where you live and recreate, and provide a list of strategies to protect and restore your local waters. Knowing and addressing the water quality issues in your watershed will protect your community and your family in the near and long term. All of us have memories that relate to a positive experience of a healthy river, stream, lake, pond, or wetland system. So please take a moment to invoke a memory of yourself or your family enjoying Vermont surface waters. Some of us may have older memories, some of us may have more recent memories. So this particular picture is a memory I have of my sister and my niece Carmela swimming in a pond in southern Vermont. And I think it just really does a great job showing how important it is for us to have clean water because we are just so very connected to it. And tactical basin plans are written to preserve those experiences for future generations. And the work of a tactical basin plan is a community effort. During the tactical basin planning process, a list of priority actions are identified for state clean water funding. This project identification process helps to prioritize where funding should be focused. Projects in the plan can be referenced when applying for other state, nonprofit, and federal funding sources, as many of our partners know. Between state fiscal years 2016 and 2019, over $3 million was awarded in Basin 14 for clean water projects. The majority of that funding went to agriculture, developed lands, specifically roads, and natural resource restoration. Working together to identify our most cost-effective clean water solutions will allow us to get the biggest bang for our buck. That's generally what we're shooting for, especially when we're thinking about long-term benefits. And the accompanying graphic was taken from the 2019 annual Vermont Clean Water Initiative Performance Report, and these come out every year and report on how clean water funds were used in the state of Vermont. So maybe you want to learn a little bit about Basin 14. I think this is where we are going to have one of the polls, but we'll wait until the next section. So Basin 14 encompasses 580 square miles in Vermont, drains portions of Caledonia, Orange, Washington, and Windsor counties. Looking at Basin 14 from smaller sub-watershed level, it helps us to parse out patterns that are not observable on a larger basin-wide scale when looking at specific issues within a section of river, a lake, or a wetland. All waters in each of the subbasins flow southeast toward the Connecticut River. And that's not the right map. But let's pop over to rivers. The watershed comprises 13 sub-watersheds, which include the Stevens, Wells, Waits, and Ompompanoosuc Rivers, and 5 Connecticut River tributaries, emphatically referred to as the Little Rivers. So these aren't the only tributaries, but these are the ones that have been highlighted by DEC in the past. The rivers are from north to south: Sutton Brook, Manchester Brook, Peach Brook, Zebedee Brook, and Bloody Brook. The northernmost point of the basin originates in Peacham, around the headwaters of the Stevens River, and terminates at the furthest point, South Point in Norwich, as Bloody Brook flows into the Connecticut River. And there are a couple of streams south of Bloody Brook, but Bloody Brook is one of the larger ones. And there's a photo in this presentation of the south branch of the Wells River that was monitored in 2018 as part of a national river and stream assessment. Lakes and ponds are not abundant in Basin 14, but a few large and popular lakes are found here, including Harvey's Lake in Barnet, where Jacques Cousteau got his start scuba diving, Lake Groton, surrounded by Groton State Forest, home to numerous kettle ponds and wetlands, Tickle Naked Pond in Reigate, known for its unique name, Lake Morey in Fairleigh, where one can find the longest ice skating trail in the United States, and Lake Fairleigh, whose shoreline is shared and managed by 3 towns of West Fairleigh, and Thetford. And the photograph in the slide is of the white water lily. It was taken during an aquatic plant inventory that was conducted in Harvey's Lake in 2019 by the Vermont Lakes and Ponds Program. And wetlands. The highlight here is Peacham Bog. It's the only documented raised bog in Vermont. It's located in Basin 14 in the Groton State Forest and is one of only 9 Class 1 wetlands in the state. Raised bogs are among the world's oldest living ecosystems that rise in height over time as a result of peat formation. That's why we call it a raised bog. They're fed by precipitation only and started forming around 10,000 years ago during the retreat of the last glaciation. This wetland complex is a biodiversity hotspot and provides temporary storage for floodwaters while also protecting fish habitat and surface water and groundwater by retaining and slowly releasing water to Coldwater Brook and the Wells River subbasin. The brook's year-round cold, clean water supports a wild, self-sustaining population of brook trout. And one of the photos on the slide is a native brook trout surveyed by Vermont Fish and Wildlife. And 9 additional wetlands have been identified as potential Class 1 wetlands in the Tactical Basin Plan. And then there's another photo on the slide that is of the Peacham Bog Trail. So what have we accomplished? So Karen, you want to do the poll, submit the poll? should be popping up any second.
Sorry, Danielle, it's not working the way it should be.
Oh, that's okay. We can keep going. And then if it works, then you can pop it up anytime. How does that sound?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so as long as everybody can still see my screen. So water quality successes. With help from state, federal, and local organization and volunteers, we've accomplished a lot since the 2015 plan. The 2015 Basin 14 Tactical Basin Plan included 85 strategies to pursue. Of the 85 strategies identified, 21 are complete, 25 are ongoing, 21 are in progress, 15 are awaiting action, and 3 are discontinued. 79% of the strategies identified in the 2015 Tactical Basin Plan are active or complete. And if you're wondering, well, what does ongoing mean? Ongoing is generally a regulatory type project, so it could be something like the municipal road general permit, where it's ongoing that towns do road erosion inventories and implement fixes. So that would be an example of something that's ongoing. The Basin 14 report card in Appendix A of the Tactical Basin Plan includes the 2015 list of strategies with detailed updates on progress. So if you really want to know, well, what have we done with each of those, you can go into Appendix A. The result of this work is reflected in the maintenance of the good water quality in the basin and the improvement of water quality in waters like Tickle Naked Pond. The following slides that I'll share provide a sampling of water quality projects that were pursued in Basin 14 from 2016 to 2020, and these lists are not exhaustive. Water quality projects in various stages of development are displayed in the statewide Clean Water Projects Explorer, and there's a link to that in the story map that you can check out, but you can take a tour of that and learn about where projects are where projects that are potential are, and then projects in progress or projects completed. So it looks like Karen has the poll up. So the question is what clean water initiative are you most interested in? The options are green stormwater infrastructure, road projects, dam removal, river floodplain wetland restoration, education outreach, agriculture clean water projects, and forestry and clean water projects. All right, Karen, if you want to close the poll. I'm not sure everybody saw the results of that. So
Sorry,
I think we have.
I erased it. I thought I had it out for all of you to see, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
looks like rivers were popular.
Yeah, restoration, floodplain, rivers, stream restoration. There was forestry projects, there was dam removal, and then green stormwater infrastructure. So there's a smattering, and those are all the different things that we cover in our basin plans. So I'm going to pop up my presentation again for folks. So for rivers, we've done 3 conservation reserve easement program projects on the Ompompanoosuc and the Wells River. So that's generally doing riparian buffer areas and conservation on agricultural lands. We've done basin-wide, Fish and Wildlife completed a basin-wide culvert survey in 2019. Several culverts were upsized or replaced basin-wide for better fish passage and stream stability. There are many woody vegetation plantings along riverbanks on the Ompompanoosuc River, Stevens River, Wells River, and Waits River. 3 dam removals go on the Ompompanoosuc River, the Wells River, and the Charles Brown Brook. And there's a video on the story map of the Gear Dam removal that you can check out that's really neat. That was produced by Ibex Clothing. There was a river corridor plan completed for the Wells River and Rygate and Groton, and an 84-acre river corridor easement on the Wells River, and then new campsites established on the Connecticut River in the Basin 14 region. So there's a paddling a trail along the Connecticut River, and there are a number of sites that have been added since the last plan. For lakes and wetlands in 2018, Lake Morey had a septic social, which is where people learn about how septic systems function and how to maintain and take care of their own systems. Lake Harvey, or Harvey's Lake, Lake Morey, and Lake Fairley all continued their access greeter programs, so funding that they received from the state to do that work. In 2018, we did a public meeting in Rygate to inform on cyanobacteria and risk to public health. In 2019, we met with the Tickle Naked Pond Lake Association to inform on water quality monitoring updates and future projects and just have general discussion. So we did that with the Lake Association and the Caledonia Conservation District. In 2019, we did a Lake Fairley boat tour with a bunch of folks, and there was the formation of the 3-town Lake Fairley Water Quality Action Committee to address increasing nutrient trends. And then in 2017, Peachum Bog was reclassified as a Class 1 wetland. And the photo accompanying this is the Lake Fairley boat tour attendees, which is a number of folks from the Lake Fairley Association, the White River Conservation District, and the Department of Environmental Conservation. For developed lands, Fairley's working on a stormwater master planning project along Route 5 in the village. And DEC completed stormwater mapping reports in 6 towns since 2016. The towns accomplished 13 road erosion inventories, and several road best management practices have been implemented basin-wide. And the photo accompanying this is a Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission staff completing a road erosion inventory. For agriculture, we did outreach and education visits to small farm and certified small farm operations for technical and financial assistance for water quality practices. So that's generally the Agency of Ag, the conservation districts, and the Natural Resource Conservation Service, who are in the Farm Service Agency, and UVM Extension that are doing a lot of that outreach. And then in the Tickle Naked Pond watershed, we completed livestock exclusion fencing, barnyard improvements, cover cropping, and nutrient management plans. And then we formed an agricultural work group to collaborate on water quality and agriculture in priority areas in the basin. And the photo accompanying this section is cover cropping on a cornfield, and cover cropping prevents erosion of sediment and nutrients into surface waters and improves soil physical and biological properties. For monitoring, we did tons of monitoring in 2017 in the watershed. That was Vermont DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, and also Fish and Wildlife, where we did targeted biological assessments and chemical water quality monitoring. And then also volunteer monitoring, lake tributary monitoring at Lake Morey, and then lake tributary monitoring at Tickle Naked Pond, which we are continuing to do. And you see a picture of the volunteers from Lake Morey and our Eco AmeriCorps staff collecting those samples. All right, Karen, what do you think? You got the poll ready to go? Yay! All right, everybody. What is your favorite designated use? Swimming, boating, fishing, aquatic life and habitat, aesthetics, drinking water source, or irrigation? And you know, Karen and Marie, you should really be voting. If you're not.
I just did, and I thought I'd made a mistake. So I couldn't help myself.
All right, so this is neat. You know, once again, we have a little mix. And it's hard, right? Because it's what's your favorite. I think we all care about these uses. And I'm a big swimmer, so I love being able to swim in water, but I love all those other things too. So it's neat to see that we're kind of represented in the different areas. All right, so I'm going to pop back up to my presentation. So what should be protected? So in order to protect our surface waters and their designated uses, the Vermont Water Quality Standards establish water quality classes and associated management objectives. So in addition to the pathways provided by the standards, the plans identify opportunities to increase protection of high quality waters through land stewardship programs, local protection efforts, conservation easements, and land acquisition. I think there's many different ways that we can protect our waters, and it's really thinking about what works best for our communities or the particular areas that we want to protect, and then building a strategy and making it happen. So as specified in the water quality standards, all surface waters are managed to support designated uses valued by the public at a level of class B2 or better. Designated uses include swimming, boating, fishing, aquatic biota, or we also call it aquatic life, aquatic habitat, aesthetics, drinking water source, and irrigation. The plan identifies surface waters where monitoring data indicate conditions may meet or exceed the Vermont Water Quality Standard objectives for A1 and B1 designated uses. So this classification that we have, B2, B1, and A1, is sort of like a grading system. So if you think in school, class B2 would be like a C, but a good C. I had years where I had a C average, and I was still a pretty good student. I turned out well. So let's just be okay with class B2 as being a C. And then a B1 is like a B, and an A1 is an A. So those that are exceeding our water quality standards, we want to make sure that we have special protections for those by reclassifying them. But remember, if it's a class B2 water, it is meeting our water quality standards. So the high quality waters can be protected by the anti-degradation policy of the Vermont Water Quality Standards or by upward reclassification through one of the following protection pathways. Reclassification of surface waters, class 1 wetland designation, so the example of that is Peach and Bog. Outstanding resource waters designation, which we have one of those, the Great Falls area on the Ompompanoosuc. And then designation of waters as cold water fisheries, which is something that is just designated within the water quality standards. And then the identification of existing uses, which can be submitted to the planners of the department at any time with supporting proof that the surface water is being used for a specific purpose. So many surface waters in Basin 14 meet or exceed Vermont's water quality standards. So this is a lot of really good water quality going on in this basin. And 5 waters meet criteria for A1 aquatic life. 3 waters meet criteria for B1 aquatic life. 4 waters meet criteria for B1 aesthetics, and those are lakes. 16 waters meet criteria for B1 fishing, and 9 wetlands are identified for further study as class 1 wetland candidates. And then we also have 32 rivers and lakes that have been identified as potential reclassification candidates, but they need additional monitoring. 7 for A1 protections and 25 for B1 protections. The accompanying map shows the priority areas for protection. So you can click anywhere on these maps. We're not going to do much exploring today, but you can click on the map. You can open up the legend. The legend will tell you what you're seeing on the map, but you can also click on the different sections on the map, and they'll tell you what it is that you clicked on. So in this case, we clicked a B1 fishing candidate, and the name of the stream is Tabor Branch. So you can explore this map on your own. There's also static maps in the basin plan itself. So what should be restored? The Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation monitors and assesses the chemical, physical, and biological status of individual surface waters to determine if they meet our water quality standards based on our surface water assessment and listing methodology. Surface waters, looks like we got sorry Karen, I missed you. We got a poll. What's your favorite surface water type? Lakes and ponds, rivers and streams, or wetlands? Ooh. Oh, lakes and ponds took the lead. We got any rivers and streams or wetlands to tie it up? So it looks like lakes and ponds wins this one. I find this a pretty neat one. I'm a wetlands lover. I generally don't assume that folks are going to pick the wetlands, so I got to put it out there for them. So I'm going to share my window again. All right. So surface waters are assessed as full support, stress, altered, or impaired. Tickle Naked Pond and Rygate has a total maximum daily load plan. So this plan basically tells us how much of a particular pollutant we can have before it starts to cause a problem with our water quality. And then these plans come up with strategies on how to reduce that pollutant. So for Tickle Naked Pond, we've implemented that, and that's been done by the local community and Vermont DEC, and then also the other agencies that we talked about. So the Agency of Agriculture, and then also the Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS. So the accompanying image as well was taken at the public beach after a harmful cyanobacteria bloom on Tickle Naked Pond. These blooms can be toxic to people and pets, and the picture is of a picture of the beach being closed. So as a result of implementing the phosphorus total maximum daily load plan, so phosphorus was the pollutant that was causing these cyanobacteria blooms that had that produce harmful toxins in Tickle Naked Pond. But now Tickle Naked Pond's been recommended to be removed from the impaired waters list for 2020. A number of water quality best management practices were implemented in the watershed to decrease external phosphorus loading from agricultural lands, public and private roads, and shorelands. The implementation of the practices were followed by an alum treatment to bind phosphorus in lake bottom sediments in 2015. The watershed practices, in conjunction with the alum treatment, have improved water quality over the past 5 years, and we know this because we've been monitoring the water quality during that time. It is hard to swim in wetlands, Ron. That's very true. So we are continuing to do water quality monitoring on a tributary to Tickle Naked Pond, which is Scotch Burn, and that's the staff from the Caledonia Conservation District, Carrie O'Brien, who's helping out with that monitoring. We're actually going to go out, I think, next week and do some monitoring. So we'll continue to do that monitoring and implementation and work with the ag community in that area. So the priority waters for restoration, we develop a 303D list is what we call it, and that's to address Section 303D of the Federal Clean Water Act. And these are impaired waters, which includes impaired lakes, ponds, rivers, and streams that don't meet our water quality standards. And the state also produces the priority waters list, which identifies other waters that do not meet water quality standards, but do require a total maximum daily load plan. Sections of that list include Part B, impaired waters that have other water quality remediation measures in place, Part D, impaired waters that have TMDLs in place, Part E are waters that are altered by aquatic invasive species, and Part F are waters altered by flow modifications. So flow modifications can impact water quality and cause changes in aquatic biological communities and rivers. And there's a photo of the Harveys Lake Dam. So this section also has an accompanying map that shows the priority areas for restoration. And you can click anywhere on this map, similarly to look at the legend, and then click on a water. So for instance, this water is the Waits River below the South Branch confluence. And this particular site is, the pollutant is sediment and temperature, and the use impairment is aquatic life and secondary contact recreation. So you can also see this in the basin plan. All right, Karen, you still there? If it's past 6:30, we lose Karen. 6:24, she might be there. But no polls popping up. So I'm just going to keep going unless a poll pops up. So what are the major strategies? So the way we look at basin plans is we do the major strategies by sector. The tactical basin plans address water quality by sector consistent with the Clean Water Initiative Program's 2019 performance report. Let me just scroll. For whatever reason, it's not there we go. So the sectors include agriculture, developed lands, including roads and stormwater, wastewater, and then natural resources, which are natural infrastructure that helps to deal with water pollution. Starting with agriculture, the focus of the plan is to support outreach and project identification for best management practices, riparian area plantings, river corridor and wetland easements, and riparian area restoration. So there's a whole group of different practices that agricultural providers can adopt to help with water quality. We are supporting the implementation of water quality monitoring on farms to measure the effectiveness of restoration efforts. Our goal is also to continue in nutrient management planning and funding for cover crop and no-till practices, which are largely adopted in the Basin 14 watershed. We want to support continued coordination with agricultural work groups for Tickle Naked Pond, and then to coordinate with agricultural service providers to determine if there's a gap in outreach and implementation of water quality BMPs along the Connecticut River. So there's a map associated with this strategy, and you can see most of the agricultural lands are concentrated along the Connecticut River, but then also the Stevens River and Peachum and Barnett and the lower wells in Reigate. And then stormwater is pretty basic in this basin. There's not tons of development. Most of the development is along the I-91 corridor and closer to the Connecticut River. But the plan is to develop stormwater master plans in Hartford, Newbury, and Bradford, and that's something that Two Rivers Regional Planning Commission is focusing on. And then also we want to be supporting watershed partners and municipalities to prioritize stormwater projects in Basin 14. So in any of the towns, if there are particular projects that would have a larger benefit, we would want to help those towns carry those out. And then also to identify and remediate stormwater sources of impairment to the Tabor Branch tributary, which is listed as impaired. So this section also has an accompanying interactive map, and it displays all the stormwater infrastructure that was identified through field mapping by the Department of Environmental Conservation. So it's basically all the infrastructure that carries water to streams, off of roads, off of parking lots. So it's the catch basin and all the piping that sometimes end up in rivers, sometimes in treatment areas. So roads, our priority strategies are to complete road erosion inventories in all the towns, and then implement the best management practices on the high priority road segments. We want to identify and address sources of runoff from municipal sand and salt storage areas. It's really interesting that in Vermont, a lot of these areas where we store salt and sand end up really close to large rivers. And it's really statewide that we see this. So we've been working with a lot of different towns statewide to help move those areas and get them to better places so they don't run off, or do treatments to prevent that runoff into surface waters. And then also we provide and support training for road crews on culvert replacements through the Vermont River and Roads workshops, and then installation and maintenance of road BMPs through the Vermont DEC Stormwater Program. So working with folks to make sure that what they're implementing is done in a way that has the desired effects. And the accompanying map of this slide displays road projects and their priority for restoration that was identified in the road erosion inventory by subbasin. So there's really a mix. There are a number that are in great condition, and then some that are sort of in the moderate, and then less so in the high to very high. But you can look at these maps and say there are certain areas that maybe have more problems than others, so maybe we should help to divert funding to those places to get that work done. For wastewater, priority strategies are identified are to support work group around source identification for the E. coli impaired watershed of the Ompompanoosuc River. So we have a group of folks that include state staff, federal staff, and then local folks as well. And we also want to promote proper septic system maintenance and explore opportunities for community wastewater. So the accompanying image that's on this slide is a flyer advertising the Lake Morey Septic Social, supported by the Vermont Drinking Water Program, the Lakes and Ponds Program, and the Lake Morey community. So this is something that any communities can do that are interested in learning more about septic systems. So natural resources, rivers. So this is a really big focus in the plan. There's definitely challenges that go on with climate change and flood resilience. You know, we're seeing increases in these higher intensity storm events and just in precipitation basin-wide. And we know this because we actually have unregulated gauges that track flow from rivers in this basin. And so what we want to do is make sure that these communities are resilient, that we provide the support they need to help them to meet the standards that they need to meet to be more protective, but then also to do things that not only protect the flood resiliency, but then increase water quality improvements and aquatic habitat for the organisms that live in the stream. To do this, we want to develop and implement projects from the river corridor plans to implement strategic wood addition to increase habitat and channel stability. So this is something Fish and Wildlife and also NRCS, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, is working on in the basin. We want to support restoring stream connectivity through floodplain restoration and support the replacement or retrofit of high priority stream crossings that have been identified in these bridge and culvert assessments that we've completed over time. We support strategic dam removal project development, design, and implementation. So where do we get the biggest benefit and where do these removals make the most sense? And then we also providing outreach to communities on floodplain and river corridor protections, and then also providing technical support for river and stream reclassification and protection efforts. And the accompanying map shows the geomorphic condition, which is a measure of stream stability and resilience of the major rivers in Basin 14. 73% of the assessed streams are in fair condition, which is not great. 13% are in good condition, 5% are in poor condition, and 2% are in reference condition. So the work that we do from the river corridor plans can help to deal with this condition. And I just want to say a lot of this is just historical, effects of things that we did on streams to support the development of our communities over time and things that we're learning and how to fix some of these problems. So for lakes, we want to support lake-wise planning, assessment, and implementation, volunteer in-lake and tributary monitoring. We want to support aquatic invasive species spread prevention efforts, to support lake watershed partners with education and outreach, explore options for flow improvements in Harvey's Lake, South Peachum Brook, and Stevens River, and then to provide technical support for lake and pond reclassification efforts. And there's an accompanying map here that shows the lake scorecard information for lakes and ponds in Basin 14. And the scorecard covers nutrient trends for lakes, shoreline and lake habitat, invasive species, and mercury pollution. And wetlands. We want to conduct studies on potential Class 1 wetland candidates and support local outreach to municipalities and landowners to gauge interest in supporting Class 1 designations. And then also to provide technical support for parties interested in submitting petitions. There's a map here that shows the map wetlands in Basin 14, and there are stars on this map that signify wetland projects reviewed by Vermont wetland ecologists between 2015 and 2019. And then there are even smaller dots that are just all the wetland projects that have been reviewed since they've been tracking them. And wetland ecologists ensure projects avoid impacts to significant Class 1 and Class 2 wetlands and their protected buffers. And then last but not least is forests. So forests are a huge reason why we have such great water quality in this basin. We are largely a forested landscape, and just in general, Vermont is largely a forested landscape. And the way that we can keep our waters good is by doing good forestry practices. And so the state of Vermont has the acceptable management practices for logging and water quality, and it's just been updated. So we want to make sure that we are implementing forest infrastructure restoration projects on our state-owned forest lands, because we want to be the model for how to manage the lands the best for water quality and habitat. We support providing outreach, technical assistance, and workshops to private forest land owners, foresters, and loggers on acceptable management practices and the current use program, the use of skidder bridges, and voluntary harvesting guidelines. Then we also support forest land conservation and the Skidder Bridge program. And the Skidder Bridge program is just a way for folks to learn how to develop these bridges, so how to make their own bridges. And then also there was, and maybe not in this basin, I don't think recently, but the ability to rent these skidder bridges as well. And so one of the places where they were seeing that you'd have most of the impact from erosion was stream crossings. And so these skidder bridges are a way to develop these stream crossings that are not long-term, and they use them to do the crossings, and then they can take them off, and they do a really great job. So the accompanying map with this slide displays the forest land in Basin 14, and it represents our forest land management. A lot of the area is under the use value appraisal program known as current use, and they're required to have forest management plans and follow the acceptable management practices. A lot of acres, especially in Groton, is owned by state. This is state property as well. So there are lots of big chunks that are privately owned too. So we want to make sure that we're working with those folks to make sure that they're following water quality practices as well. So how do you get involved? Well, you attend Tactical Basin Plan meetings like this. You learn who your local watershed partners are and how your town is improving water quality. You become familiarized with the most recent Tactical Basin Plan for your town, and then you connect with watershed partners in your town on how you can help make those strategies happen. If you don't have watershed groups in your area, you can reach out to your basin planner. There's a map accompanying on the slide with the basin planner's information. If you want to submit your copies, they can be obtained. It started on May 18th. You can get them online on the Basin 14 website, or you can request a copy from me. So you can send me an email. You can call me at 802-490-6176. Comments should be directed by email to anr.basin14comments@vermont.gov, or by mail to Danielle Owczarski, Basin 14 Comments, 1 National Life Drive, Davis 3, Montpelier, Vermont 056203522. And comments should be postmarked or sent through email by the end of the business day, 4:30 on June 17th, 2020. Comments received by this date will be addressed in a responsiveness summary. And I think the date's actually the 19th, so I may have to update it on the story map. So that's it. So thanks for those of you who have stayed on. And I think, Marie, you're still here with us and you were going to take comments. So I guess if anybody has any comments or questions, you're welcome to ask whatever questions you want. And then if you have any specific, and because there's not many of us, you can kind of just ask the questions. This is recorded, so we'll have the list of questions. But if you want anything specifically to be addressed in the plan, please do let us know and type in that comment. Or you can send it to me by email or submit it with whatever group you're working with. So yeah, I'd love to hear from folks. Oh, maybe I need to unmute, I think.
So can you see the question that Ron just posted?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Has the agency added all rivers and streams to the fishing existing use list? So Ron, the way that it's worded in the plan is that all the rivers and streams have an expectation that they will support fishing, and that the tributaries provide functions that even if you don't necessarily have fish there, that they provide functions to support fish habitat. So those streams should also be seen as potential existing use.
Okay, good. On the website, under the basin plan, it says it actually has existing uses: swimming, boating, fishing, and on those lists, it still has a limited number of rivers and streams listed for both boating and fishing.
Yeah.
So I wasn't clear if that was the old list, and the new list, new plan will have a broader list.
Yeah, we really haven't been updating those lists as of recent. In general, I've tried to, encourage folks to submit any existing uses. But I think in general, the way that we've addressed it, at least in the fisheries section, the protection section, the way Fish and Wildlife has described it is that our waters should be supporting that use. But I don't know, legally how that works. So that could be a good question for us to address in the responsiveness summary.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for years, as Marie knows. And one of the things that always confused me, I guess, is that you guys go out and do the bioassessments, part of which is fish data.
Mm-hmm.
And so you say, oh, there are fish in Bloody Brook, but then Bloody Brook doesn't get added to the existing use list for fishing, even though the data is there. So it's been an ongoing, I think we've made progress. And so that I'll be interested to see, and I can go out and read that. Is that in the plan, Danielle?
It's the section of the plan it's in, Ron, is the protection plan for the B1 fisheries. So it's not specific to the existing uses, but like I said, I think that it's a good question to address in the responsiveness summary, because if we have the existing use and like you're saying, we have the data that supports it, in what way are we, adding those to the list as time goes on?
Right. I understand that department wouldn't necessarily want to add every single, stream to an exhaustive list, and you don't want to take my word for it that there are brook trout or whatever in that brook. But when the agency has the data, those would seem like easy inclusions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Marie's typing away. Does anybody else have any comments or any questions about the plan? And remember, if you can submit comments separately. All right. Well, I think if everybody's good, then I think we can go out and enjoy what's left of well, I guess if you guys are raining. It's not raining in Berry City right now.
Go out. We're not allowed to go out, are we? Go grab a beer out of my fridge, maybe.
I know, my dogs are calling me. They say, come,
yes.
come outside. Come play with us. Yeah. And dinner. I think dinner might be calling me as well.
Yeah.
I can see you now, finally.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Well, been an hour or so, but good job tonight, and no questions really. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Russ. And I mean, your input would really be valuable too in the forestry section if, you have anything.
They look pretty good from what I saw.
Okay. Great. I appreciate it. Good night. Yep. Thank you, everybody, so much.
Okay.
Be safe. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank
you. You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Nice job, Danielle.
Thanks, Marie.
Yeah. That went well. I thought you did a good job with it, and you kept it interesting in how it didn't feel like you were just reading the screen, which was really good.
That is good.
It is.
I'm glad to hear that.
So that's
Oh
good.
God. I know. It's crazy though, because you just never know what you're gonna get, And so I always feel so bad for like Ron and Jess. I'm like, oh God, you guys have to sit through another one of these.
Yeah. But they're getting paid to do it, so it's okay.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
So,
I know, and it makes it does make it easier for me, and I hope that part of it is because the plan is, it's been going pretty good, and people feel relatively good about Basin 14 and the stuff that's been going on. But then we also have so much going on right now in the world, and like, so I get that that's also probably difficult for people to. I don't know. All I know is that what's his name? Ethan Tapper. He like does these like forestry things all the time and a million people show up. So I don't
oh, is
know.
that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Maybe I need to do it at a different time of day. I don't know.
No, it's just the nature of the beast. You just never know on any given night how many people are going to show up. So
I know.
but you had some, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, sure.
Somebody was there.
Yeah.
I've had one person show up, so this was good.
I know. It's so funny too, because you're like, should I have a presentation for like if barely anybody shows up in the presentation if a lot of people show up, and then you just basically have a conversation if it's a really small group of people.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Two of them. All right. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Karen. I think Karen just like I thought I saw like her wall at some point, and then that disappeared.
She had other things to be doing.
Yeah. She did get some polls in there, so that was good. I'm glad that we got to try it out.
It just keeps you engaged, so that's good.
Yeah, it's fun. So I'm here to be your poll person, Marie, or your comment person, or whatever you want. I'm here for you.
That works for me. Well,
Okay.
I learned a lot from this, so that was helpful.
Cool. All right, thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Bye.
You did a great job.
Thanks, Brian. Take care.